Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
It's Friday, December 22nd, 2023, and I'm Candace Kelly sitting in for Roland. Here's what's coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. A Washington state jury acquits 3 officers in the 2020 death of Manuel Ellis, a black man who was shot, beaten, and restrained face down on a Tacoma sidewalk as he pleaded with his breath. The Ellis family attorney will be here to tell us how the family feels about this verdict. The black Mississippi officer who shot an unarmed 11-year-old gets his job back after a grand jury found he did nothing wrong. The Supreme Court is not going to interfere in Trump's immunity situation. And then we're also going to talk about a number of other issues coming up, all here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Starts right now.
Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now.
A Washington state jury acquitted 3 Tacoma officers of all charges in the 2020 death of a black man. Officers Christopher Burbank, Matthew Collins, and Timothy Rainkin were found not guilty of first-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter in the death of 33-year-old Manuel Ellis. Now, on March 3rd, 2020, Ellis was walking home from a 7-Eleven with some donuts past a patrol car. This is when a confrontation began with Collins and Burbank. The incident was caught on video by 2 bystanders. The Pierce County medical examiner ruled Ellis's death a homicide caused by oxygen deprivation. Defense attorneys argued that Ellis died from a lethal amount of methamphetamine in his system and heart complications. This was the first time in the state's history that officers were charged with use of deadly force. The Ellis family settled a federal wrongful death lawsuit against Pierce County for $4 million in March of 2022. And joining me now is the Ellis family attorney, James Bible. James, I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yes, you know, I think that this is very interesting. We're talking about over 3 years in the making, 2 months of an impaneled jury who came up with this decision, and they had quite a detailed video that they were looking at, which is why the community is so mad. What, in your estimation, made the jury decide the way that it did?
Well, I'd like to point out first that there wasn't just one video. There were actually 4 separate videos from 4 separate individuals, all showing that Manuel Ellis had done nothing wrong. Ultimately, I think that in this case, the judge himself actually put his finger on the scales of justice in such a way that justice was not served. His actions were impermissible. He allowed evidence that otherwise in criminal cases would not typically be allowed. It's deeply disappointing that our courts operate in this fashion here in the state of Washington. At this stage, given that we don't feel as though justice can be served in the state of Washington and victims can get any amount of justice here, especially when they are black and they are accusing officers of wrongdoing, we have no choice but to go to the federal system and request that the U.S. attorney actually take on this case as criminal charges. I'll also note, and I think that it's critical, that there is still civil litigation going on in this case, and these officers and more will have to face us in trial.
I want you to take us inside of the courtroom because there were several things that were laid out. For example, the usage of certain language was prohibited. There were also concerns about how the judge perhaps was acting unfairly and biased to your case. What would you say, first of all, just about the language that was allowed to be used, not to be used, and how that actually fared?
Well, it was interesting because the state was not allowed to say that they treated Manuel Ellis as something less than a human being, when realistically, when you choke, tase, beat, and then hogtie somebody, you have absolutely treated them as something less than a human being. There was a lot of that was actually happening in this particular case. I also note that the judge called the female prosecutor obtuse, and I don't think that he would have called any of the male attorneys that under any circumstances whatsoever. So it was troubling in terms of past incidents that were allowed into this particular case that never would have been allowed in any other homicide case in the state of Washington. The language and what could be said, what couldn't be said, including whether you could talk about the blue wall of silence, was remarkably troubling, especially since the officers in their closing remarks indicated that if anything had happened that was wrong, one of the many other officers at the scene would have stood up and said something, and the state didn't get to respond to that. But, you know, there's so much more in this in terms of race and race dynamics. As I was walking out of the courtroom, one of the attorneys for the defense team said to me, "Move on, boy." And that's something that I think is absolutely racially derogatory, similar to the N-word, especially in the intent that was coming behind the strength and vigor of that particular voice. So we're not surprised, but we are prepared to move forward in both our civil litigation and pushing for additional changes in the Tacoma Police Department, and also asking for federal charges.
Right, and so that's what we're talking about now, and that is the next step in terms of getting the Department of Justice involved. But I also understand that there is an internal investigation going on at the administrative level in Tacoma inside of the police department. Can you give us an update, first of all, about the internal investigation that's going on and some of the changes that I understand may be in the process of taking place in terms of the police department, and what you think about how that will really pan out?
Okay, so one of the changes that happened shortly after we brought this case public was that they actually did start using body cameras in the city of Tacoma. Those body cameras have led to an officer being fired for using racial slurs after having written a ticket, or being removed after having used racial slurs after having given a ticket. Ultimately, though, the administrative process for these particular officers has been mostly a farce. We maintain, as a legal team and the family, that you don't have to be convicted of homicide. You don't have to be convicted of murder or manslaughter in order to be fired from your job if you're bad at it. It should be enough that probable cause was found. It should be enough that the judge refused to dismiss the case. It should be enough that the case went all the way to jury. It should be enough that there were more than 4 witnesses. It should be enough that the medical examiner said it was homicide, and that the people that killed Manuel Ellis were these officers and perhaps a few others. So we'll see what they ultimately do. But at the very least, these officers need to lose their job. It's notable that they have been on paid leave for approximately 3 years, had what essentially is a 3-year vacation, and it's time for that to stop.
It seems as though this is a case that is right for the Department of Justice. Where are you with that and your hopes of getting them to intervene here?
So we're preparing a letter to the Department of Justice now, and we're going to be requesting an in-person meeting with the U.S. Attorney for this region. The family is dedicated to this, as are we.
One more question, and that is in terms of how the community has been feeling. I know that his family certainly has been going through quite a bit. They have taken to the streets. They've gotten out their bullhorns. How has the community reacted overall? I saw video of shop owners that were putting up, wooden panels in their stores. What's going on there right now today?
What was remarkable to me first was when the verdict was announced, they cleared the entire courthouse. They acted as if it was some sort of imminent emergency. Those of us that were there to hear the verdict, I think it was 14 African-American women and 2 or 3 African-American men, were no threat to anybody, weren't prepared to cause harm to anybody, wanted to hear the verdict, were hopeful for justice. But if they're willing to shut everything down, including the courthouse, just off of the thought that maybe we should do something wrong, it tells us something about how they perceive us in general. The reality is people are frustrated, people are hurt, people are tired, and they recognize that Manuel Ellis not only said, "I can't breathe," he said, "I can't breathe, sir." He raised his hands to say that he wasn't trying to harm the officers or anybody else, and they still killed him, and he didn't receive any justice. So the members of the Black community and perhaps other communities in this region are deeply troubled, and we're prepared to find solutions to this situation.
All right, I want to turn to our panel right now. I'm joined by Michael Imhotep. He is host of the African History Network show. He comes to us from Detroit, Michigan. I'm also joined by Matt Manning. He's a civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi, Texas. And Kelly Bethea. She's communications strategist, and she joins us coming out of here right in Washington, D.C. I want to open up the floor for questions to the Ellis attorney. Michael, I'll start with you.
All right, and thanks. It's good to see you again. Attorney Bible, in looking at what the officers said was the reason for, I guess you would call it probable cause. They said that Manuel Ellis was trying to open car doors of occupied vehicles, end quote. What in the trial, what type of evidence was presented to substantiate something like that? And also, what have you heard anything from Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson's office regarding trying to appeal this ruling or conviction? I mean, acquittal, I should say, acquittal.
Okay, so what I would say is this. The officers repeatedly changed their position in relation to the basis for the stop. There was absolutely no evidence related to any sort of actual Manny Ellis going into cars. At one point, they said that he had tried to get into a woman's car. There had been a car prowl. Or that he had even hit their car. There's literally no evidence in relation to any of that. And frankly, it wasn't presented. They kept changing their story as additional videos came out. So they never really touched on, at least not adequately, the basis for the stop. In terms of the acquittal, the state is not in a place under our system where they can appeal this particular acquittal. The option now in terms of criminal, some sort of criminal action occurring in terms of charges has to go to the federal government.
All right, Attorney Bible, I want you to stay with us after a break. We are going to come back and have a few more questions. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, and we'll be right back.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach. Did you know that 43% of Americans say that they're going to go deeper into debt because the cost of everything is rising because of inflation? On our next Get Wealthy, you're going to hear from money coach Lynette Kelfani-Cox as she shares exactly what we need to do to stay out of debt and get wealthy.
When I paid off my $100,000 in credit card debt, I was just doing strategies kind of piecemeal. I was doing like what I thought would work. And then it was like, oh, great, it did. It was effective. And then I was like, I should document this. I should explain like how I got out of debt.
That's right here on Black Star Network with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth.
Jamia Pugh. I am from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, just an hour right outside of Philadelphia.
My name is Jasmine Pugh. I'm also from Coatesville, Pennsylvania.
You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
We are back continuing our conversation about the police who were acquitted in the killing of Manuel Ellis in Tacoma, Washington. You know, this is something that has been going on for over 3 years. A jury listened for months, saw several videos, as we heard from the attorney of the Ellis family, and still came up with this particular decision. I wanted to turn this now to Matt. Matt, especially as a civil rights attorney, I know that you have great input here for Attorney Bible. What question do you have for him?
Sure. Well, let me first say, James, thank you for standing with this family. It's very difficult to do that in these circumstances, and I'm glad they have someone shepherding them through this process. The question I have is really about the interplay between Pierce County and that settlement and what you anticipate, what role that will play in the settlement against Tacoma. Obviously, Pierce County is the county where Tacoma sits, but what I'm confused about is how did the Pierce County officers play into this? And how do you think that settlement may affect your future litigation against Tacoma?
Absolutely. So Pierce County settled their portion of this lawsuit for $4 million. Pierce County was present at the time of the death of the murder. one of the officers at some point had touched Manuel Ellis's body, and they were also at one point responsible for the investigation into whether or not there was any impropriety by the Tacoma Police Department and its officers. They took on that position knowing that they had a conflict of interest. As a result, they were added to our lawsuit along with the sheriff's deputies. They chose to resolve their portion of this horrific incident early. And at this stage, we're moving forward with the Tacoma Police Department and several other Tacoma police officers that played a role in this particular incident. One of the folks that played a role that was not charged was an individual that actually put a spit mask over Manuel Ellis's head that also ended up impacting whether or not or how he died. So there'll be much more that we'll be discussing in terms of information and evidence in this particular case that the state in its criminal charges was not able to actually move forward on or talk about.
Kelly, jump in with your question.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Bible, for being here. I know, again, like my panel echoed, like the circumstances are, not ideal. And my apologies. My question to you is regarding next steps. My understanding, of course, is the $4 million settlement with Pierce County. What is the status of what's going on with Tacoma, the city of Tacoma, rather, and the other parties involved? Also, as far as next steps, are there any moves to possibly do some type of legislation policy push to make sure that this doesn't happen again, rewriting laws, advocating for the rewriting of laws, if you can expound upon that as well?
So I believe in the state of Washington, as a result of this particular case, somewhere around 10 to 12 laws were actually changed on the state level, which was of critical importance. And then body cam was added to the Tacoma Police Department, and they didn't have body cameras previously. In terms of the litigation against the city of Tacoma and the defendant officers was stayed pending the criminal case. The criminal case is no longer in the way. So we'll be preparing for trial on the civil level in federal court, and we'll determine when, or we'll figure out exactly when that trial date will be. But at this point, we plan on litigating this matter all the way to jury.
Being in the courtroom every day, obviously, I'm wondering, was there a point that you thought where things turned? Did you have hope at one point going through the process and getting the attention of the jury, reading their faces, and maybe understanding where the case went? And then do you think it took a turn at some point where it was hard to reel them back?
I think that it's hard to believe even now, given the evidence that was presented at trial, even in spite of the judge and the judge's rulings and how he put his finger on the scales of justice, that we still ended up with an acquittal. Because I understand the judge did not want a conviction, that he pushed for a non-conviction, that in front of the jury he actually tried to explain away the actions of the officers in a way that was remarkably impermissible. But even with that, we have 4 videos from four different civilian witnesses, and we have Manny's own words, which were, "I can't breathe, sir." And we have the response from the officers, which was, "Shut the F up." That should have been more than enough, and nobody should be under the delusion that Manuel Ellis, on his way home from the 7-Eleven, was going to just naturally have some sort of heart attack without officers beating, tasing, choking, hog-tying him and leaving him there to die as he was pleading for his life.
You mentioned so much about the judge, and the judge has spoken and said, any legal analyst that you speak to will say that it couldn't have gone any other way, that I was fair and I was impartial. But when you speak so much about the judge and really wrongdoing, is there any sense on your part that judges in this situation, even you personally, would report this as some type of judicial misconduct? Because we hear this all the time, and that is why committees are available on judicial misconduct, but we often don't hear it getting to that point.
I understand that there are family members that are interested in filing judicial misconduct complaints against this particular judge under these particular circumstances. He made a lot of assumptions in his case about who Manny was. He definitely impacted the jury in remarkable ways, and he made assumptions about who we were as a group of people that was really inappropriate and created a chilling effect on people's desire to even be in the courtroom. So I think that, yes, judicial complaints need to be filed. I'll also be filing bar complaints against a couple of the not the officers, but the defense attorneys over some of the things that they claimed about me and some of the things that they said to me as they were walking out of court.
All right. Well, we are going to be back after a short break, so stay with us.
Grow your business or career with Grow with Google's wide range of online courses, digital training, and tools. Gain in-demand job skills with flexible online training programs designed to put you on the fast track to jobs in high-growth fields. No experience is necessary. Learn at your own pace. Complete the online certificate program on your own terms. Stand out to employers, get on a path to in-demand jobs, and connect with top employers who are currently hiring. Take one professional career certificate program or all 6. Earn a Google Career Certificate to prepare for a job in a high-growth field like data analytics, project management, UX design, cybersecurity, and more. All professional career certificate programs must be completed by December 31st, 2024. Scan the QR code to complete the application. There are 1,000 scholarships available. Grow with Google and J. Hood and Associates. Be job ready and qualify for in-demand jobs.
Carl Payne pretending to be Roland Martin. Holla!
You ain't got to wear black and gold every damn place, okay? Ooh, I'm an alpha, yay. All right, you're 58 years old. It's over.
And you are now watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable.
All right, and we are back. I just have one last question for Attorney Bible before I let you go, and that is this. What is it that you want the people to know about the Department of Justice and how that could turn into something that's more next level in terms of what will they do if they take this as a case that they want to take on and pursue?
I think when at the state level, people are unable to achieve justice in cases that involve race and civil rights, it's necessary for the federal government to step in and the Department of Justice to actually file charges. It will be another level of review and accountability, and hopefully in a different court, a federal court, that would allow for more rigid, how shall we say, implementation of the law in such a way that it's not treated as a special case where officers get remarkable deference under the system.
All right, James Bible, I want to thank you so much for being with us and giving us insight. I know that this is not over. I'm sure that we'll be having you back. Have a good holiday.
Thank you. This is not over by any stretch of the imagination.
All right, we are going to go to our panel that we have today. Listen, Michael, Matt, Kelly, there is a lot that is going on here. I want to get to you, Matt. What is it that you think is the takeaway from this case this time around? And I say this time around because we always have these rounds and it won't end.
Candace, I'll first say I'm really glad to see you behind the desk. I always enjoy the opportunity to be on with you, and you're doing a wonderful job already.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nonetheless, I'll tell you, the takeaway from this is people out there watching need to know that the criminal system and the protections of the criminal system are fundamentally different in ways that unfortunately doesn't surprise me as it relates to this outcome. What I mean is in the state of Washington, like in most states, you have to prove intent when it comes to murder. So when we're talking about criminal indictments, I kind of never really have great faith that it's going to go the way it should, that we know it should morally, like in this case, when you're asking questions about intent. So the officers being acquitted in a criminal trial where they couldn't be deposed, where they did not, are not at least under any duty to testify about anything, doesn't surprise me, because when you're talking about getting to beyond a reasonable doubt, as you well know, that's a high burden, right? As it relates to the civil trials, though, I think there may be a much different question, especially in the Ninth Circuit, because as we talk about on this show often, there are 11 federal circuits around the country, and then obviously there's some in D.C., and each one approaches things differently. So in the Ninth Circuit, where the judges are typically more liberal, there may be a circumstance where they don't think qualified immunity should be extended to these officers, and a federal civil rights trial is successful for the Ellis family. So I'm glad they've had some kind of settlement. I know it's not nearly enough, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. And that's why this was the first time in the state of Washington police officers had been charged with murder charges, because prosecutors are generally reticent to do it. I'm glad that they brought the charges. However, I think the civil litigation will fare better for them. And that's why I asked Attorney Bible about the Pierce County settlement, because the fact that Pierce County thought it was appropriate to settle this case and to settle it substantially makes me think that there may be some institutional liability for both of them in Tacoma, the city of Tacoma here. But not knowing more of the evidence, I can't say how robustly that will be proven true. But I will tell you this. Now that jeopardy is attached, and now that they can't, appeal this case, this may be fundamentally different if they're deposed. And what they say under oath in a deposition might have an outcome that is much more fruitful, at least from the monetary sense, for the Ellis family.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you made a point that I was about to make to Kelly, and that is this. This is the first time this has happened in terms of bringing police officers up on charges like this. Do you think that that had something to do with this? This is really new territory, Kelly.
I'm not entirely sure. I feel like at this juncture, with the many cases that have come before this one, I'm a little jaded as far as the approach regarding the judge and the other, little snide remarks that were made throughout the trial, to think that because this was an inaugural trial in this regard, that this is the reason why. I think that our system is so inherently flawed and racist that this absolutely could have been the outcome because the system is so inherently flawed and racist, not necessarily because of anything else other than that. And maybe that's just me being jaded. Maybe that's just me being a cynic in this regard, but that's just how I feel at this point. It's not fair. It's not right. Any other jurisdiction, the exact result could have been the same, but yeah, I don't think one way or the other about it. I think we just live in a country where racism prevails 99% of the time, and that George Floyd was the outlier.
Michael, I was thinking about George Floyd and how the video told the story, and without that, people wouldn't have believed it. People could have never imagined that would happen, even though the story has been told over and over again. With this, we had, as we heard from Attorney Bible, 4 different videos that made their way into court that people watched. What do you think, Michael, about this whole idea of this video being so clear and detailed in terms of what happened with this man on the ground, just trying to get donuts from the store, that the jury just didn't buy it? I mean, how else did he get on the ground? How else was he shackled and something put over his head? How did that video not compel the jury to think otherwise, in your opinion?
From my understanding of the case, they had parts of videos of the arrest. Like part of the arrest was caught on video by a witness who testified during the trial. So this wasn't as, even though this was horrific and Manuel Ellis was tased 3 times, and it appears that this whole incident was unjust. And as Attorney Bible said, the officers changed their stories a number of times of what the probable cause was, what provoked them to stop him. But with George Floyd, going to what Kelly just said, George Floyd was an outlier because it was so horrific and all of it was caught on video. Okay, if there had not been a video of George Floyd with Derek Chauvin with his knee on George Floyd's neck for 9.5 minutes, it may have been 50-50 whether there was a conviction. Okay. And this was in the state of Washington, this was the second homicide charge against police officers since the Initiative 940 was instituted in November 2018. This was a measure to make it easier to prosecute police officers for negligent shootings. So it's going to be interesting to see how this new law is going to be instituted in the future, and if they are going to lower the standard that's needed to convict officers in the state of Washington on negligence charges. We know when it came to the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, one of the parts of that bill was at the federal level to reduce the standard to convict police officers from willful intent, which goes to state of mind, down to negligence, which would have made it easier to convict more police officers. So we'll see what happens here.
You know, Matt, tell us something that we don't know when it comes to being attorney in a courtroom and how things can just change at the drop of a dime. You really just don't know. There's so many things that are out of your control, are there not?
There's so many things out of your control, and not only how people testify, but one of the things that people watching may not understand is there are a lot of things that control how a trial is governed, including something like the jury charge. So, you know, first, I want to say judges all the time not only get things wrong, but they put their fingers on the scale. That happens every time I try a case. And it's an unfortunate reality in our judicial system, but it is part of the system, right? And one of the ways that they do that is govern what the prosecutors and or the defense attorneys can say. I mean, I've been in trials before where somebody has to be referred to as a complaining witness as opposed to a victim, right? Part of that is because you may have a judge who's a former criminal defense attorney, and they don't want to give the idea that someone is a victim before that legal designation is made. I say that to say the judge has so much control over how a trial is run. So I totally understand Attorney Bible and sounds like his justified complaints about what the judge did. However, when we're talking about a criminal trial, as you well know, Candace, we're talking about beyond a reasonable doubt, which means every single crime has elements. And unfortunately, when I looked at this, I knew immediately that what they were going to be arguing was intent, right? Is that you can't prove that they had the intent to kill him. And as it relates to first degree, they have to show premeditation. So I say that to say it depends on how the witnesses testified. It depends on what the medical examiner said. What people don't realize is a medical examiner determining that something is homicide does not mean that there's necessarily criminal responsibility behind that. It just means that the death came at the hand of someone. That doesn't mean that there's not a legal justification for it. I'm not arguing for that here, but my point is there's a lot more nuance that goes into the courtroom, and it's difficult to look at these cases in a vacuum when you don't see the evidence that's adduced for, 30 days. But I will say judges set the tone for juries. And if a jury gets the impression that they think the judge thinks this person is going to be acquitted or is not guilty, that plays a big role in what juries do. It depends on what instructions he or she allows into the jury charge, how they respond to witnesses. I've had judges sitting on a bench before who are sneering when a witness who's a crucial witness for either side comes up to testify. And if you're a juror, there's no way to not see that the judge is indicating that he or she thinks this person's not a credible witness. All that stuff, the aggregate, has a major effect, because if you're just looking at the video, you and the other 11 citizens might go back and say, yeah, he's guilty every day of the week. But if you get the impression that the judge doesn't think he's guilty, then that's going to have an indelible effect on what you do. So, juries and trials have times where the tides turn depending on what comes forward and how it comes forward. But I think Attorney Bible really did a good job in explaining how the judge put his finger on the balance. And that is one of the biggest parts of the system that we have, as flawed as it is that you have human beings who are doing their job, and they're unfortunately affecting the outcomes in the way they shouldn't be.
Absolutely. One judge's side eye, one judge's gesture. A jury can look at that and say, well, if he doesn't believe it or she doesn't believe it, why should I? This is a seasoned judge. I'm going with him or her. Kelly, what is something outside of the courtroom that you think the community can be doing right now in order to make sure that something happens in terms of the name of justice and the next steps that need to be done in terms of getting the Department of Justice involved in this? What do we typically see and how it plays out?
I mean, certainly petitions are one thing. I know a lot of people think that they don't work, but it is actual concrete on paper proof that people are listening, people are paying attention, and you need to do something on behalf of the people who put you in office or put you on that bench, depending on how the judges got there, that they are looking at you to make sure that accountability is being held. Also, like I alluded to in my question to Attorney Bible, is that legislation is a big deal. Legislation is more concrete than any individual ruling on a case. So, policies in place that, hold police more accountable. I understand that he said something about, body cameras being used for the first time, holding cops accountable to keeping those on, making sure that there are rules in place regarding, don't choke a detainee out, things like that. But just holding police officers more accountable, holding policymakers more accountable, and certainly keeping abreast of the case as it proceeds and not letting it die in local media and beyond.
And before I go to break, Kelly, I just want to follow with you. I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like we just need all of these parts. You need the community, you need the justice system, you need boots on the ground, you need a jury that's going to do right by you and follow the law, you need a judge that's impartial. I mean, there's so much that is left to chance there, but you need all of these parts.
You absolutely do. It's a cliche saying, but teamwork makes the dream work, right? And this whole country, as flawed as it may be, was crafted so that there was no one branch greater or having more power than the other, so that they can all collaborate to make this a better union, right? And I know it sounds grand and cliche, but that's really what it's supposed to be. Granted, it's rooted in racism, but that's why we have Black people and brown people and other people of color who came here either by choice or not, to make sure that everybody's being held accountable to what was already set in place before we came onto these lands. So that's what I mean when I say, make sure that you keep it in the mouths of people who matter so that they can still talk about it, so that the powers that be are still held accountable to the community, to the public, and making sure that laws actually work for everybody.
Absolutely. As they say, out of sight, out of mind. If you don't shed the light on it, people will forget. Short memory spans. All right, we're going to come back after a break. Stay with us on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm Dee Barnes, and this week on The Frequency, we talk about school to prison pipeline, book bans, and representing for women's rights. The group Moms Rising handles all of this. So join me in this conversation with my guest, Monifa Bandelli.
This is white backlash. This is white fear that happens every time Black people in the United States help to walk the United States forward towards what is written on the paper.
Right here on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
Next on The Black Table with me, Greg Carr, the enigma of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. What really makes him tick, and what forces shaped his view of the world, the country, and Black America? The answer, I'm pretty sure, will shock you.
And he says, people think that I'm anachronistic. I am. I want to go backwards in time in order to move us forward into the future. He's very upfront about this.
We'll talk to Corey Robin, the man who wrote the book that reveals it all. That's next on The Black Table, only on the Black Star Network.
On the next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Beware the generational curse. They're everywhere, in our families, in our workplaces, and even in our churches. It's like a minefield, identifying the curse and knowing what to do about it.
When we're talking about generational patterns, oftentimes we get locked into those patterns because we don't want anyone to say, oh, you acting brand new, or you doing something different from how this is how we always did it. It's okay to do something different in order to get the results that you want to see in your life.
That's next on A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Latasha from the A.
And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
The Supreme Court rejected a request by special counsel Jack Smith to fast-track arguments as to whether or not Donald Trump has any immunity from federal prosecution for alleged crimes he committed while in office. Smith asked the justices to skip a federal appeals court and to quickly decide the fundamental issue in his election subversion criminal case against Trump. Now, both sides will have the option of appealing the eventual ruling by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals up to the High Court. The court's refusal could be seen as a victory for Trump because the issue of immunity has to be settled before the case goes to trial. The court did not explain its reasoning, and no dissent so far have been noted. Now, moving on to other news having to do with the 14th Amendment. We know that this is a big one. A North Carolina senator wants to introduce a bill to withhold federal funds from states that misuse the 14th Amendment. Are we not surprised? Republican Senator Tom Tillis's announcement about the Constitutional Election Integrity Act comes on the same day that Trump was kicked off Colorado's Republican primary ballot under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Now, Till says that left-wing activists are making a mockery of our political system by scheming with partisan state officials and pressuring judges to remove him from the ballot. The Constitutional Election Integrity Act aims to amend the Help Americans Vote Act of 2002. Adding language to the law stating that the Supreme Court has the sole jurisdiction to decide claims arising out of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. There's a lot of Trump news going on there, and we are not surprised that this 14th Amendment is now in question after what Colorado did. Michael, listen, I know that we can't be surprised by this. We could have seen this coming because this is something that we have now seen that potentially the states really do have the power to get Trump off of their ballots. With that in mind, I wonder what your take is on what states will be doing next and what Republicans will be doing next, because the battle has begun, Michael.
Well, a lot of you have some Republicans that are going to side with Donald Trump and aid in the bet, like Senator Tom Tillis. But the Colorado case was brought by conservatives. They were brought by conservative legal scholars who were members of the Federalist Society or former members of the Federalist Society. So that lawsuit was not brought by woke liberals. All right, and as one of the leading conservative, Judge Reddick is one of the leading conservative thought leaders and conservative legal scholars. He said this is not partisan. This is following the Constitution. Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution is clear. OK, if you participated in an insurrection or gave aid and comfort to insurrectionists, OK, then you are barred from holding political office, whether it's state, whether it's federal, et cetera. It doesn't matter which political party it is or anything like this. And yes, this was as a result of the U.S. Civil War and the Confederacy. But this is clear. They're following the U.S. Constitution. This is something I've said from the beginning and say, no, he should be banned. And also Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of 1868 does not state that you have to be convicted of participating in an insurrection either. So this is Basics Civics 101, hashtag Civics 101 is Roland posts on Instagram. And when we look, and once again, we have to understand that democracy is on the line. We're staring down the barrel of authoritarianism. We're staring down the barrel of dictatorship, and Trump is telling you what he's going to do. All right. I warned people in 2016. He said he will only nominate Supreme Court justices who would overturn Roe versus Wade. I'll be damned. That's exactly what he did.
Yeah. Yes. And you know what? There was a lot of build up to that. And we know that was a lot of planning on his part. You know, Matt, what I found most interesting about this is that when we talk about the Supreme Court and those who might be conservative or down the middle, they often claim that we need to look at the original intent of the framers. So here, if we're going to take that view, and if you look at the Colorado case and how they really made their case, which they did, they really are spelling out that this is exactly what they meant. So why are we veering off to the left? And I think that that is going to put the Supreme Court in a very, very difficult position, because those who claimed I am only an originalist and let's look at the intent of the framers, now they're going to find themselves in a bind, Matt.
Oh, they're absolutely going to find themselves in a bind. Let me say first that Tom Tillis is drunk on cheerwine and that good vinegar-based in North Carolina, because this is as intellectually dishonest and disingenuous as it gets. First, I think Michael's exactly right regarding the 14th Amendment and that this is what the Constitution says. But beyond that, to harken back to your comment earlier about short memories, what do conservatives say all the time? They say government or the states should have the right to decide what they are going to do. They argue states' rights all the time. So the reason this is intellectually dishonest is because what this is the state of Colorado's duly elected officials saying we're not putting him on the ballot because in our state, our Supreme Court has decided that he engaged in an insurrection. And here's the really important part about this, right? The way the Constitution is written is it doesn't require that there is some legal finding. The judge here actually had a trial where she determined that the evidence showed he engaged in an insurrection, right? Which means that the district court's decision is based on the evidence that she heard in a trial or a hearing where they put forth and showed the evidence that Mr. Trump engaged in an insurrection. The reason that's important and the reason this is even more intellectually disingenuous is because if you look at Section 3 of the Constitution to the 14th Amendment, it says that Congress has the ability to remove the disability. So what that means is that means if they believe, right, that Mr. Trump should be able to be on the ballot, Tom Tillis and the Congress people, really the House, have a remedy for that. They can remove the disability. Now, I suspect what Congress doesn't want to do is they don't want to have an open vote where they're on the floor of the House and 2/3 of them vote that he did not engage in an insurrection.
They do not.
There's political harm to them for that. But this is intellectually dishonest because the Constitution not only affords it, number one. Two, Michael's exactly right. Conservatives brought this case in Colorado. So this is not liberal, no matter how much they try to make it look like a partisan thing. And thirdly, as much as they beat the drum of the Constitution and states' rights and federalism, they move that goalpost when it's, disadvantageous to them, just like here. But if you're going to keep that same energy, so to speak, Mr. Trump can't be on the ballot in Colorado because the people of Colorado have the right to determine if he's on their ballot. So I think Tom Tillis is drunk on cheerwine and that good old vinegar-based sauce.
Kelly, I think that Matt and Mike put it best. I mean, Mike talked about the abortion rights. Matt talked about the fact that we have left so much power to the states, but now we are just completely doing a 180 on this and saying, even though we wanted the states to make the decision about abortion, well, this one we're going to do something a little bit different. That really doesn't fly, does it, Kelly?
No, it doesn't fly. And I don't think it's so much of them doing a 180. I think they are completely on brand for what they've been doing for the past, let's just say 5 years, to be conservative with it, and that they are consistently moving the goalpost to fit the agenda that they want to push. And the agenda that they want to push is to stay in power, to stay white, and to stay rich. And they feel that Donald Trump will aid them in sustaining that kind of status quo. It's not doing a 180. Hypocrisy is their brand. They are completely on brand with this in that they are just consistently moving the goalposts, changing the rules so that they can get exactly what they want. And for them to do this, again, it's on brand. I'm not surprised anymore by what Republicans do, don't do, say, don't say, because in my head, it has been a consistent brand of BS that they have been touting to the American people.
Matt, I wanted to shift the conversation to this immunity, the fact that the United States Supreme Court is not going to address whether or not the president is immune from these particular charges that Smith is bringing. What are your thoughts about what this does on a strategic level for Smith in trying to carry out these various cases that he has, if the Supreme Court can't make a decision yet or won't yet as to whether or not he's even allowed to do so?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, and one I've kind of run through a few times. And the answer I don't know is whether immunity is just a factual issue for a jury to decide, or whether that's a legal issue that a judge has to decide. The reason that's important is this. I've seen this characterized as a win for Mr. Trump. I don't think it is. I think it's very possible that the appeals court rules against him and then the Supreme Court decides not to take it up. If they decide not to take it up, then he doesn't get the immunity and it's dead in the district court. So I think there is a tendency to paint things as being positive for Trump when they're not objectively positive for Trump. But beyond that, if immunity is a legal issue for the judge to decide, then the district court judge decides that in a trial. If it's a factual issue for a jury to decide, then a jury, just like self-defense or any other defense in a trial, might say, nope, you don't get immunity for that because you were president at the time, but that immunity only appeals to or applies to civil issues, not criminal issues. I think what Jack Smith is trying to do here, which is smart, is he's trying to get the issue answered before you go to trial, almost like you would any kind of declaratory relief or something where you're asking the judge to say, what is the law on this?
Yes.
But I don't think this is fatal to his trial by any means. In fact, I would think if I'm on Mr. Trump's legal team, I'm actually concerned about the Supreme Court not answering this question because I know they're trying to kick the can down the road. But the problem is it creates uncertainty for them, because they can go to trial if the Supreme Court hasn't decided that, and if the appeals court rules against him and the Supreme Court doesn't take up the petition for cert, then he's in the situation where he now knows. Whereas if that's not resolved by the Supreme Court, it could theoretically happen at the trial that he goes to trial, is convicted, and then gets to appeal whether that immunity should have applied. So I think this is Jack Smith trying to get an early answer to the question.
Sure.
But I don't think this goes to Mr. Trump's benefit the way it's been characterized. I think, in fact, he would want to have that answer a lot more clearly and earlier, than waiting for the Supreme Court. And I get it in the political context, but legally it would concern me. I'd need that question answered before, we ever put a jury in the box.
Well, Kelly, what is your take on this decision by the Supreme Court? Because both sides, Trump and Smith, wanted the court to make the decision. So some would say, well, maybe this is good for Trump. Maybe it's kicked back down, to the circuit court. But others would say, well, I don't know. The fact that they didn't want to take it means that maybe they didn't have enough to go on. What's your take on the fact that they're not actually dealing with that right now? Who do you think that falls on the side of more?
On a personal note, I think they think that it's Christmas and they don't want these problems right now. They just want to be with their family.
They're looking at the calendar.
You know what I mean? It's like, you know what? It's Christmas. Let's celebrate Jesus first. But on a real tip, I completely agree with what Matt is saying in that if you notice, Trump didn't say anything against Jack Smith's letter in that he wanted it expedited. I think Jack Smith even wrote the letter because there's precedent for the Supreme Court to be nosy and do things outside of their judicial calendar, meaning with the case regarding George Bush and the court themselves deciding who was going to be president of the United States that year. That was an immediate ruling. Even before that, I want to say in the 70s with Nixon, the court intervened rather quickly regarding the tapes, and that's how he resigned so quickly. So there was precedent for the Supreme Court to go in outside of their regular ruling calendar to do things like this. But I think that because this is so unprecedented, like Matt said, I think they want DC Circuit Court to say something first and look at their rationale regarding this issue, and then they would use that for any ruling coming down the road so that they can at least have something to put into the opinion. Because right now, again, we are literally looking and navigating uncharted territory regarding this issue. So I feel like they needed something from a lower court, any lower court, to substantiate whatever ruling they have down the line.
Oh, absolutely. And when we look at the Supreme Court and their calendar, I mean, this is not really a busy time for them, and they are busier than they ever have been. As you said,
they want to go home.
They do want to go home. The practicality of it is there. Let's be real. They've also been on the hot seat when it comes to conflict of interest and who they are borrowing vacation homes of and going in the flights of. They have really been on the hot seat. Mike, I want to ask you this. What do you think the fact that they kicked it back down to the circuit court, Michael. What do you think that actually translated to? What do you think it meant, besides the fact that, you know what, Monday is indeed Christmas?
Well, they're not going to intervene. They're not going to expedite this. Now, the District Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. has put the appeals case on the fast track. You're going to have opening statements or arguments beginning January 9th. But also, in relation to what Kelly was saying, Special Counsel Jack Smith is citing 1974 United States versus Nixon, where the U.S. Supreme Court intervened and decided it was 8-0. If I remember correctly, because I think it was William Rehnquist who recused himself, but decided that Nixon had to turn over the tapes. But Trump's attorneys are citing a civil lawsuit, 1982, Nixon versus Fitzgerald, where the court ruled 5-4 in favor of Nixon, and this dealt with immunity from prosecution. This was after Nixon left office. However, this was a civil lawsuit, not a criminal case. Right now, the special counsel is prosecuting a criminal case. So it's eventually going to get to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it's not a guarantee that it's going to go in favor of Trump just because he nominated 3 Supreme Court justices as well. So we'll have to see how this goes. But what we can be sure of is we can stop this fool at the ballot box November 2024.
All right, listen, certainly a lot more to come on this. Be afraid. Be very afraid, folks. This is just the beginning. We're going to be back right after a break.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting. We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Hi, I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. I don't play Sammy, but I could.
Or I don't play Obama, but I could.
I don't do Stallone, but I could do all that. And I am here with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
Layla Bajinka has been missing from her St. Paul, Minnesota home since April 17, 2023. The 14-year-old is 4 feet, 11 inches tall, weighs 154 pounds, and has black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Layla Bajinka is urged to call the Hennepin County, Minnesota Sheriff's Office at 952-258-5321. All right. A Mississippi woman who was shot in the head by an officer during a 2022 traffic stop is suing the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, Capitol Police, and other officers. Well, listen, according to this lawsuit, on August 14, 2022, Sharita Harris was a passenger in her car driven by Sinatra Rakeem Jordan. The car was waiting for the light to turn green when a Capitol Police officer's car approached their car from behind and activated their police lights and commanded the car to pull over. The lawsuit claims that the vehicle immediately pulled over, but that the officer began to shoot blindly at the car anyway. Harris was shot in the head and now suffers from several complications. The lawsuit claims excessive force was used, and Harris is asking for $3 million in damages. Meanwhile, the driver of the car, Jordan, was indicted on charges of felony fleeing and 2 counts of aggravated assault. The indictment alleges Jordan shot at the officers. In other news, in Mississippi, a Mississippi officer was cleared for shooting an 11-year-old boy in the chest. He is back on duty. Indianola Police Department Sergeant Greg Capers had been suspended without pay since May 20th. This is when he shot Adrian Murray. Capers shot the unarmed boy when the officers responded to a domestic violence dispute between the child's mother and her ex-boyfriend. On December 14th, the Sunflower County grand jury decided not to indict Capers after an investigation by the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation. A judge ruled that the body cam footage to be withheld, possibly until Adarian is an adult. A Florida man is accused of committing a racially motivated hate crime, resulting in the death of a Kansas City, Missouri man. A federal grand jury indicted Sean Walter Tonkin for stabbing 41-year-old John Roan to death at a gas station. According to the documents, Tonkin was armed with a knife with knuckles when he approached Roan, who was black, on July 4th of 2023. The records note that Tonkin was unprovoked when he allegedly racist slurs were directed at Roan. He later allegedly stabbed Roan twice in the chest and abdomen. Roan died from injuries, and he suffered in the attack. I want to turn this to our panel. Michael, let me start with you. I want to talk about this 11-year-old, okay? This 11-year-old, and here we have the police officer that was acquitted, and in fact, we have the video that is not going to be released until he is much older. What is the story behind that, Michael?
Well, we don't know, because I talked to Attorney Carlos Moore last Friday, December 15, 2023, when I guest hosted Roland Martin Unfiltered, and he broke down the case. Now, that was a grand jury that decided not to indict. So information is secret. There's a lot of information we don't have. I wanted to know, why was Adarian such a threat? This was a domestic dispute. Police were called. People inside were ordered to walk out and come out with their hands up. Adarian did that, as he's demonstrating right here, and then Officer Capers shoots him. Now, we're trying to figure out what's probable cause. Was this 11-year-old, did he appear to be 6'9" and appear to be a threat, what have you? And based upon police union contracts, I'm not sure which union negotiated this contract, but when you have situations where there's no indictment, or if there's an acquittal, right, they can get their job back and also get back pay. I haven't read this police union contracts, but I've read others, and it's stipulated in the contract what happens every step of the way. So because he was not indicted by the grand jury, unfortunately, he's back on the police force.
You know, Kelly, I think it's so interesting that, I mean, you have the video so that people can see what was happening. It doesn't make sense that, especially in the situation of an 11-year-old, that you wouldn't show that video. That seems to be a higher level of expectation in terms of what a police officer would do with an 11-year-old. Why hold the video, Kelly?
I don't have the answer to that. What I do know is that we have a severe problem with the adultification of Black children in this country, and that probably played a huge factor as to how and why this officer so felt threatened by this child that he shot him and risked killing him for reasons that we still do not know, really. Just to be fair, I could understand the suppression of a video that, you know, knowing that he's 11 years old could, you know, sway people one way or the other, maybe unfairly, whatever. I'm not saying that I believe that. I'm just grasping at straws here. But at my core, I feel like there's just a huge problem with the adultification of Black children here. I mean, we can look back to Tamir Rice and that situation. We can look back to Emmett Till and that situation. And there are so many situations and grave moments in our history in between those situations where our children are looked at as older more mature and more accountable for their actions than they should be, certainly more than their white counterparts.
Right. They're more aggressive no matter what the age, even if they're an 11-year-old boy. You know, Matt, does it strike you as strange or an aberration that this video would not be shown? As I said before, it seems like this would be the right time to see exactly what was going on, because by all accounts, these were people who came out of the house with their hands up.
It strikes me as strange in this situation, primarily because the child's already been identified. If I represented him, I might not want that information out without it being blurred, because I think children, you know, should have a privacy interest. I have a 13-year-old son. I have 3 sons. My oldest son is 13. If this was him, I wouldn't want that out everywhere. However, now that it's been identified who this young man is, I don't see why they would hold it unless there's something damning on that video that would make the Indianola Police Department think it's inappropriate to release it, or will show that the fix is in. And we know that that happens with police departments all the time. They release video and it's doctored or it's edited to show the best angle, but not what actually happened, right? Or that somehow absolves the officer. So that may be functionally what we're dealing with here. But I don't see why you wouldn't release it if your officer is in the clear and we already know who the 11-year-old child is. In this instance, I will say, though, I think, you know, when they inevitably file a lawsuit, if they haven't already, I think this is going to be a much harder case than a lot of others for the police department to defend, because it sounds like it's undisputed that they were coming out of the house with their hands up.
Right.
So how this officer is ever going to be able to claim he was in fear of his life or any of the normal stuff that we hear that often absolves officers, even in the Fifth Circuit where I practice, which is the most difficult place to practice in this country, I think he's going to have a hard time with that. So maybe on the back end, there will be a favorable settlement for this family, especially because he's an 11-year-old. And Kelly's exactly right about the adultification of kids. But in this instance, I don't know that he's got any kind of defense that makes any sense, because if they're coming out with their hands up and that's on the video, it sounds like they're going to be writing a pretty big check pretty soon.
Right. And you know what, Michael, that's what I was going to ask you about. Looks like this is an open door for a settlement. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. But also, you know, going back to the conversation we had about Manuel Ellis, I think it was, who was killed by the 3 police officers. Also, it should be a clarion call to right-minded, right-thinking African Americans who want to be the type of officers that we say that we want to see. Because what gets left out of conversations like this is right now there's a nationwide shortage of police officers. There's not a nationwide shortage of incompetent police officers. There's not a nationwide shortage of white supremacists who want to be police officers. But we have the ability to apply these police departments and be the type of officers who respect people's humanity, who will only use lethal force after we have exhausted other non-lethal methods, and treat people like human beings and not hogtie them. Okay, so this is an opportunity, and we don't need more legislation to do this. This is the opportunity for us to realize that we can seize power in these police departments, and some of the first people who should apply for these jobs are the activists who got policies put in place like duty to intervene and body cameras and things of this nature.
Kelly, I'm wondering, you know, the sergeant in this case, who is off of suspension right now, if you look at interviews with him, he said, you know, I really just made a mistake. Now, he sounded, and I don't know if it was for the cameras, but he sounded remorseful. He had all of his ducks in order in terms of explaining what he thought he saw. I'm not asking should we give him any grace, but I am wondering from you if you think that could have been a possibility that he could have made a mistake.
I mean, mistakes happen every day, right? I'm not going to discredit someone's experience, especially since I wasn't there and I don't know. But what I do know is as a police officer, you can't afford to make that kind of mistake. You really can't. And it's your job to not make that kind of mistake. So as remorseful as you are, as regretful as you may be, that's all well and good, but that does not take away the accountability that you now own for making that mistake.
Matt, I think that this was a situation where the town said, you know what, we don't have a lot of money. What happens in these types of situations when there are towns or cities who claim, you know, we don't have a lot to give here, no matter how much you sue us for?
Well, you know, I don't know how it works in Mississippi, but first off, I'm still asking for a big number, because what happened to this young man is a trauma he's going to have to live with for the rest of his life. But the way it works here in Texas, and presumably in a lot of states, is cities pay into a risk pool. So You know, a lot of times cities are a part of what's essentially like insurance. They pay into a risk pool. So in the instance that they have to pay a judgment, they're able to pull from that risk pool. So, you know, if Indianola says they don't have the money for it and they're not a part of that risk pool, then whoever runs that city is an abject idiot because they got to have some kind of protection, right? So presumably they have protection and it's probably in a risk pool or maybe just straight up insurance. But I mean, as you can imagine, they have to have insurance for non-violent situations, just like when somebody's driving a police or a city vehicle and they have a wreck with a citizen, right? They've got to be able to cover those damages. So I would imagine they have something like that, probably a part of a county or city risk pool there in Mississippi that would cover this.
Michael, so many cases every year. As we close out this year, what do you think in looking back at so many things that have happened up to this case that we're talking about right here? What do you think is the takeaway for this 2023 in terms of how we have come, in terms of how far along we have come in the justice system and work that still needs to be done?
Oh, good question. Well, first of all, the U.S. Department of Justice was created in 1870 as an act of Congress, largely to enforce the new rights that African Americans were given. And one of the first things that they did, Amos T. Ackerman was the first attorney general under the U.S. Department of Justice, and he was prosecuting Ku Klux Klansmen in the South who were attacking African Americans, attacking African American elected officials, Republicans, killing us, et cetera. So what we have to understand is that the U.S. Department of Justice, largely under Attorney General Merrick Garland, is operating based upon its original purpose. It prosecuted, it arrested first about 1,000 domestic terrorists who were involved in the January 6, 2021 insurrection that I've been educating people on as a continuation of the U.S. Civil War and the political violence that brought it into the Reconstruction era in 1877. And also they've gotten a little over 600 convictions or guilty pleas as well. So, and we look at the work that Kristen Clark is doing in the Civil Rights Division.
Yes.
So they're operating based upon that. So we have to see that is only a consequence of 16.9 million African Americans voting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So we have to build upon that going into 2024, because this is about saving the democracy and fighting against authoritarianism.
And Kelly, I want to ask you this question in a very different way, because I think that all of our personal experiences are very important to how we see the justice system. And I'm wondering, for you, when you look at this year in terms of the justice system, and you as a Black woman in America, how have things either changed or not changed for you in terms of how you think people are perceiving you, taking you in terms of your existence and just living and breathing in these United States?
I think people have expanded their vocabulary to basically cover up just how racist they can be. I think they have, I've seen the weaponization of therapy jargon. I have seen, quote unquote, big words being used to summarize, really small thoughts. I don't think much has changed. I think the only thing that has changed is how it's being said. And with the coming election and the rigmarole that's about to be unearthed, I am concerned with the direction this country is going. We already have the overturn of Roe v. Wade. We already see these states acting a fool, as my grandmother would say.
Right.
Acting a plumb fool regarding how women are supposed to be treated, approached, behave. Like we are regressing at a rate unlike we have ever seen, even though so much around us, such as technology and school of thought, is progressing. But in order to maintain the power and status quo, our laws have to regress. And we are in a very tumultuous, uncharted territorial type of time, in that I don't know how it'll be reconciled. I really don't. But I'm here for the ride.
Right, you're here for the ride. You're here for the tomfoolery if you need to be. Matt, I want to go to you because Kelly brought up something very important, and that is, listen, we've got people out there who are just going to the table and say, okay, 14th Amendment, Section 3, let's just make some legislation in order to diffuse that. But then there's another part of the 14th Amendment, and that's due process, right? And we know how important that is, and we know how important that is in terms of people fighting for it and not getting it. You mentioned earlier that you have 3 sons. What are your hopes for your sons in looking at the way the justice system is set up now as we come to the end of the year, hearing all of these types of stories, and certainly primed to hear more?
Well, my first thought is that they're never afraid because, you know, the only way you can protect yourself is you fight everything all the time, especially if you're accused of any criminal act. I say that as both still a criminal defense lawyer, but as a father, because a lot of what happens to us, particularly as Black people, is a lot of times we don't have the luxury of the information on how to best defend ourselves and protect ourselves. So the first thing is I hope they fight everything. If you ask my oldest son to go through his backpack, he'll tell you, I'm not saying a single word, call my dad. That's how I hope they move through the space, because I'm blessed to have that information to at least teach them a little bit to protect themselves. But globally, we do live in a racist society, and we live in a racist society where they walk through the streets as young Black boys and they'll become young Black men. And that's a terrifying thought, that the reality is I can't protect them all the time. But what I can do, and what people who have the information can do, is make sure we disseminate it to our people. So the first thing I will say is I don't think we need to change anything related to criminal laws, because as much as I don't like to see an officer acquitted in a very clear moral situation, I don't like to see a Black person convicted in a situation where if they had those protections, they would have walked free as well. Right. So at the end of the day, the way our system is set up with criminal cases, I think is appropriate. You should have to climb the highest burden. But I think what we talk about on this show often is, as it relates to civil rights cases, what we as a society have to do is demand that our legislators make it where we can actually vindicate the Constitution. Because what we have in this country is we lie all the time about the Constitution mattering, when every time I file a lawsuit, it's climbing Mount Everest to get somebody justice. What we need to have is our state legislatures putting in things to remove qualified immunity and, frankly, taking it out of the hands of judges, so that when an 11-year-old boy is shot by a police officer and he's not doing anything wrong, we don't have to be worried that he may not get a settlement. Like, that's an absurd idea that we live with in this country as Black people and as citizens in general. So we need to demand that rather than playing politics, they actually push forward policy that protects us as people. And I know some of that is a pipe dream, I mean, especially in a racist country. But the reality of it is, I think Kelly kind of mentioned it earlier, we really need policy pushes that will protect us better. And that's what I'm hoping. And I'm hoping my sons are proud and are unafraid, and that they stand strong, they stand 10 toes down if they ever get accused. But I hope that we globally more learn our rights and learn our the best ways to protect ourselves, one of which being, if you ever get accused, don't say anything. Like the fact that this sergeant is on TV talking about what happened is absurd to me, because if I represent him, he's not saying a single word. Prove it in the court of law. And that's the way we should approach it when we're accused. We should fight to the death on those issues, because that's the only way we have any semblance of protecting ourselves.
All right. Sounds like a dad of 3 boys to me. Very good to have all of you. Michael, Matt, Kelly, as always, good seeing you. And thank you so much for being guests on tonight's panel. And have a good holiday.
You too. Happy holidays.
You too.
All right.
Happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa.
Why, thank you very much. Now, hey, before I let my panel fully go, I want you to join me in February for an eye-opening journey on a new podcast called Not All Hood, Nah, hosted by a dynamic trio, if I do say so myself. It's Malcolm Jamal Warner, the Wayusi Baraka, and me. We are going to be jumping into some rich Black experiences in America, from exploring Black masculinity to unraveling the threads of love and media representation. We're going to bring you conversations that matter: pop culture, music, headlining news. This podcast gets into the celebration and the triumphs of being Black in America, and Malcolm Jamal Warner really opens up. If you don't know him, you will after this podcast. Follow us on Instagram at nah_notallhood. TikTok at nah.notallhoodpodcast, and on X at notallhood for exclusive content and updates. It's coming this February. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, and we will be right back.
talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Gospel artist Bri Babineaux's music career started with her YouTube channel in 2014. Bri was among many gospel voices who participated in McDonald's Inspiration Celebration Gospel Tour. Roland sat down with the Louisiana native at Chicago's House of Hope, and we're going to see that in a moment. Before I do, though, I want to just wish everybody a happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We are going to see you on Wednesday. Now on to Bri and Roland.
Good. How are you?
All right, it wasn't hard to figure out where you from. I mean, so I didn't need to look at a bio or nothing. I saw Babineaux, and I immediately thought about Robichaud, Malbo, Thibodeau, Rideau, all the folks. So my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, Opelousas, Louisiana.
Oh, that's right here.
So I know all the names, all the folks. So with an EAUX on the end, you know exactly where somebody's from.
Exactly.
How often do people mess with you about your accent?
See, I know how to turn it off and turn it on. So when I'm around people, listen. When I'm around people that's from my area, then it comes out. But
it's all out right now. You in Chicago.
But I'm talking to you, and you
all out. Here's what I tell everybody. This is when you know you meet a woman from Louisiana. When she go, baby, there's no other. If I hear a woman say baby, when I hear that word.
Shat is another word.
Of course, shat. I'm talking about when a woman. First of all, men say that too.
My dad.
But I'm talking about men say that. I'm talking about when a woman. There's no other.
Did I say that when I'm talking to you?
No, you didn't say it, but I'm telling you, there's no other place in the country that a woman says baby, like over Louisiana.
Okay.
Well, baby.
Yes.
See, it's a whole.
yes. No,
see, it's a whole. If a woman say that, you like, you from Louisiana.
No, what I hate is when you say that or they hear your accent, it immediately puts you in New Orleans. Oh, you from New Orleans, baby? Don't put me in New Orleans.
Okay, we go get to gossip music, but favorite Zydeco artist.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with Lil Nate because that's my cousin.
Lil Nate.
And a Zydeco Big Stepper. That's my cousin.
Favorite old school Zydeco. Old school. Buckwheat. So there you go. Clifton Chenier.
Yeah, Clifton Chenier is really, really good.
There you go. See, that's what I'm saying. Most people, and see again, I think a lot of people.
People call him Buckwheat because Buckwheat kind of like, he's like the godfather.
No, I go Buckwheat because they had Zydeco's at our church. It was Catholic church, so Buckwheat always performed.
Bro, okay, pause. I went to a funeral. My great aunt passed away, and we in the service, and it was a Catholic church. It was in Cecilia, because that's where my people from, Cecilia. And all I heard was the accordion, and I look up in the balcony, and it's the whole side. I had never in my life seen it before. I'm like, they're really about to play Zydeco, and literally they played Zydeco.
Love it.
At the funeral. In church.
What's wrong?
I ain't never heard that before.
Okay, I would have jumped up.
Never.
And were they jamming?
Yeah, they was jamming, but it was like, what is happening? No.
There you go.
No, you're not supposed to play Zydeco.
Yes, you can. Look at the whole second line in New Orleans.
Yeah, but that's New Orleans. But Zydeco, no.
What's wrong?
No, not Zydeco.
You can play When Jesus Wept to Zydeco.
No.
What's wrong? What? Yes, you can.
No,
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Maybe that person who died loves some Zydeco.
They did, but I was like, I can't believe this is happening.
I'm with him 100%. Did everybody jump up and start dancing?
No, but they was moving. Dude, the priest was even looking like to say, what is going on?
No, I'm with them. I wish I would have been there.
I was shocked. I said, this cannot be happening.
I was like, oh, Champlain.
Oh my God.
I would have loved that.
Bro, my grandma never was like, oh, Shannon, they playing a single mom.
I would have been.
No. And I draw the line. You can't play that in church.
What? It ain't no different than when
it's
you.
It's a big difference.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is to me. It is.
How was it? Okay.
I don't know.
If you
I don't know.
If you flip the lyrics, if you had a Zydeco band playing gospel music, that ain't no different than.
But that's that. Like you just want to just move. Like it.
Yeah.
Not you can't do that.
Yes, you can.
What?
Look, if Yolanda Adams singing "My Liberty," or if somebody, you still gonna move. It ain't like they were twerking. I mean, you just sitting here just.
Yeah, but your feet start moving. You know, it's a little.
Yeah, you know, ain't no difference in that Shirley Caesar foot pad.
It's a big difference. It's a difference.
I think you need to add.
You want to grab your partner, swing out, baby. You can't be doing that.
Yes, you can.
Oh, you can't.
Yes, you look. There's a certain point in the Catholic service when everybody get up and greet each other.
Oh, and the peace. That's my favorite part. That is my favorite part. I'm not lying. It was like peace. That's my favorite part. I don't know nothing else, but that part.
You don't know
for that part.
Look, I was born and raised. Look. For my Catholic church was in my grandparents' living room.
Okay.
So I was born and raised.
Okay.
I left the Catholic church 30 years ago.
Okay.
So why am I at the funeral for my uncle? And I know all of the call and responses. It is so ingrained in my head. Wow. Like because they asked me to live stream the funeral. I'm sitting here, I'm like, how do I like every part, I ain't looking at no booklet or nothing. I'm reciting every single beat. It's just, wow. It's just right here.
Yeah, I've been to my family on both sides were raised Catholic, but they ended up, leaving the Catholic Church. But some people still were there.
Right.
But some got Catholic funerals and all of that, and I kid you not, don't know nothing, don't like nothing. But when it gets to, giving peace and
you love that part.
Peace sign, I'm right there. Hey, I'm right in there.
Now that y'all have black gospel music at the Catholic Church, because we did. It wasn't that.
Well, you have your black Catholic churches, and then you have your.
Right, but I'm just saying, like our Catholic church.
They did black. No.
Right, we had black music. We had gospel music. In fact, we had a fight because there was a new priest came, a white priest, and he didn't want gospel done.
Right.
We were like, bro, it's a black Catholic church.
Y'all keep them out?
Huh? Oh no, we had a whole back. No, we left, and literally my whole family left. When I say my family left, that means 2/3 of the church left. Like we, because it was we can't do gospel.
No, they do gospel.
We said, man, like, we can't.
Well, the Catholic churches that my grandma and them went to, they did gospel.
Right.
We can't talk about
with the quartet.
Okay, no, I don't know where they found that band at. That's not normal.
No, I'll forget that. I'm telling right now. I'm telling you, you need to add a song or two to your set. I'm telling you, you need to add a song to your set with that Zydeco sound. Look, John P. Key did a song.
Where's John?
John P. Key did a song
where
he infused go-go and gospel.
Okay.
The song's called I Made It Out. And that song is banging.
Go-go is not too out there.
What you talking about?
People not accustomed. Okay, most people know about go-go. Most people don't know about Zydeco.
That's because I mean go-go, Chuck Brown.
That's a Louisiana thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a crazy thing. Not every part of Louisiana actually have Zydeco.
Well, but
like my mom and them is from New Orleans, Slaughter area, and they didn't know about Zydeco until they moved to that.
Well, that's because Zydeco was typically rural or country Louisiana, where I'm trying. Look,
rural country.
Yeah, rural country. It's called country. You know.
Hey, don't do my people.
You know doggone well. Like, where we going, to the country?
Yeah, I know, but still.
That's what it's called. Right. You know, when they say we going to the city, we going to the country. Don't be trying to act off. Don't be, see.
I hate it. I ain't gonna lie, I did.
That's because you want to be.
You want to
be bougie.
That ain't bullshit.
You want to be bougie. What you mean? You said there's no air?
It's no air.
That's why you can't eat gumbo anytime.
My great-grandma, she didn't have, like, air. I used to
Oh, see, right there. See, you didn't want to sweat. You didn't want no fan.
Man, you used to have to be careful, man. You go lift up the toilet and be a snake in there. I'm serious. Like, that's the type of like, no. As a kid, you'd be scared. I'm serious.
You like, I need indoor plumbing.
Yes, indoor plumbing. But that's all right. Hey, it made me into the woman I am today. I'm serious. I see it all. I have.
So how in the world, so with that upbringing, how in the world you get involved with gospel music?
Okay, so my start with gospel music happened in 2014. I so happened to be at a worship night that one of my friends were doing. I wasn't even going to go.
There was no accordion.
No, not at all. No, we don't do that. No worship night. No worship night.
You need to add it to your, I'm telling you.
No, bro, we can't do that.
That would totally turn it out.
People would just be, they wouldn't even understand.
Yes, they would.
No, they wouldn't.
Okay, go on to the story.
Okay, so I went to the worship night and we were singing. I started singing a song called My Hands Are Lifted Up and then went into Make Me Over by Soné. And a friend of mine was recording the whole worship experience. And he ended up posting the video on Facebook. And within less than 24 hours, the video had went viral. I woke up the next morning with like a ton of messages from people all over the world just saying how the video had touched them, inspired them. And literally every video that we would post after that, people will begin to gravitate to it. And that's kind of how I got my start. Music wasn't on the agenda. Like at the time,
what were you doing?
I was in school. I wanted to become a lawyer. I was majoring in criminal justice. And at that time, I had a year and a half left. And I was going to go to law school and become a lawyer. That's what I wanted to do. That was my dream. But God had a different plan for me. And I remember praying, me and my family, me and my parents, to be exact. And I remember asking God, like, if this is what you want me to do, then you have to make the path forward. Mm-hmm. And literally after that prayer, he began to literally set everything up for me. So I knew that it was God's plan and I knew that his hand was over my life. And so I did the music thing. And when I got into it, it was like, what's happening? Because everything was happening so fast. And like I said, like,
ready for it?
But I still wasn't ready for it.
See, that's what kills me. I tell people all the time, don't be praying for stuff.
Right. No,
then go, hey, slow down. Did you?
I thought it was gonna be like, a smooth little journey.
So
easy.
God timing ain't your timing.
No, it wasn't.
That's why you be careful what you pray for.
It was so fast, and I felt like at the time I didn't have the stamina for it because it was just happening so fast. It was a new territory, unfamiliar territory. I mean, singing in church, and doing it because, you're a pastor's child, you're doing it because there's a need in the church, that's different. But to travel all over the world, going to different churches and leading people into work, that, baby, was a beast.
Baby.
Was a beast. And I'm telling you, like, I literally had to, within my career span, I had to take a break and kind of reevaluate what it was that I wanted to do and what it was that I wanted, to present to the body of Christ. Because when I got in the industry, it was everybody else leading me where they thought that I should go, but I had no sense of direction. I had no sound of what I wanted people to get from me as an artist. And so I took time. I took like a year or two to kind of figure out what I wanted to bring, what I wanted, my music to sound like. And finally, I can say I finally figured out what I want to do.
So what is that lane? What do you think? Because there are in gospel there are different styles and different genres in gospel.
Right. So for me, I'm more of a neo soul R&B. I don't get mad at me, R&B type of girl. Like
So you the Erykah Badu gospel?
I wouldn't say Erykah Badu, no.
You Jill Scott a gospel?
No, I wouldn't say Jill Scott. Like
you the Granika gospel?
No, I'm more so like what's the word I want to say? So I grew up, my family, my dad, kudos to him. He listened to a lot of like old school. Right. So I grew up like listening to the Gap Band, listening to Maze featuring Frankie Beverly, listening to Curtis Mayfield. So I grew up, with all of those sounds. So I'm more of a soul singer. Right. Like my favorite artist is Sam Cooke.
But Sam Cooke started with Soul Stirrers. He started and that's where he developed his style.
Yeah, but he was a soul, a soul singer, and
he was a soul singer doing gospel.
He really was.
So
everybody was
even when you listen to if you listen to his stuff, especially at Live at the Harvard Square Club in Miami.
That's my favorite. Oh my God, that is my favorite.
That's considered one of the greatest live albums in history.
I have it on vinyl.
Oh, it was crazy. It wasn't released for almost 30 years after it got recorded because they said it sounded too black.
But that's what he did.
Oh, I know.
Oh my God! Like he was just like.
Oh no, I
was mesmerized listening to.
Oh yes.
It's something else.
Feel it?
Yes, it's the time. Like I was the women, like screaming. Really, I'm telling you, I was.
But if you read the book Dream Boogie on Sam Cooke, those women were screaming like that when they were doing gospel.
Yes. Okay, I did watch. Let me tell you something. First of all, that whole quartet line, baby, that's some stories.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of stories.
A lot of stories. I thought it'd be some good quartet. Like my grandparents, like they love quartet music. My grandma be like, I can't get with your stuff.
And again, when we talk about your style, your lane, that's also it's generational.
Right.
It's regional country. Yeah. It's all those different things. And the thing, I remind people that Thomas Dorsey's music was not embraced from the outset. I remember when the Winans did that song with Teddy Riley, and folk acted a plumb fool.
Yeah.
Well, they acted a fool when the Hawkins family came on Oh Happy Day. So you've always had this struggle in gospel music between contemporary, how it's supposed to be. Right. That's why I was joking all the time about the whole deal with accordion, because again, when John sent me, I Made It Out. Let me tell you something. I played that. I was playing a lot of music during COVID. I remember I played that song 28 straight minutes. Okay.
That's how you know it's a good time.
That beat was just again, and it's go-go. It's literally, and he says it on it. It's a go-go gospel song. And I'm always trying to remind people though that every art form came out of gospel. So this whole idea of like you singing the devil's music, no, this is where it comes from. And so people are just taking the different styles and saying, now let me create a new sound for a new generation.
And gospel music even now is evolving. It's not what it was 10 years ago. It's not what it was 5 years ago. It's constantly evolving, and
just like the church.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
I mean everything.
Exactly.
But how do you make sure? How do you make sure? Because there are some record execs, there are some others who would love to get away from being churchy church. Mm-hmm. Some folk, oh no, let's do a gospel song. We don't even mention Jesus, don't mention God or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so they want it to be sort of nebulous, as opposed to no. There still are some how do you make sure there still are some foundational issues that we still adhere to?
I believe there's a way to do it. I believe that you should not try to still have your core I'm gonna say values. I want to make sure even with my music too, still keep that lane open. Like I want my people to come on a journey with me, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to forget. I never want to forget where I came from, mm-hmm. and I never want to lose sight of who orchestrated my entire journey. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I know that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So I believe it's a way to do it. You just have to be tasteful about it. Some people think that, you can do it without. If that's your take on it, then that's your take on it. I believe everybody is on their own different journey. But for me, I still have to somewhat remember who my target audience is.
Got it.
Like if I want to go and sing R&B, then I'm going to do it. I don't want to just be singing R&B, or mixing the two. It's either one or the other. You know what I'm saying? And just because, the sound may change, that doesn't mean that, the message has to change as well.
This is 17 years of this tour, and you had so many different artists that have come through here. Your truly traditional folks. When you look at this lineup, this year is really about embracing this new sound of gospel. Yeah. So your thoughts about the different artists and different styles, and you just being a part of this.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be a part of this. Like I feel honored just to be able to share the stage with all of these wonderful artists. And they did a phenomenal job with the artist lineup. I mean, you're getting Hezekiah Walker, you're getting Anthony Brown and Group Therapy, and you're also getting Doe. Doe is incredible. Like her, I hadn't heard an album like hers in a long time where I did not press skip.
Well, first of all, you said album, because now a lot of it just single. Ice-T was just talking about that. He said how people listen to albums.
The entire thing, top to bottom, and didn't have to skip a song, not one time. And what she's doing, she's creating a different lane. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember listening to When I Pray, and she said hell, and my mom was like, she cussed. I said, Mama, she didn't wait. Hold on. She didn't cuss. Like one word. But it wasn't traditional. It was unorthodox. Right. But it was like her being real and transparent. Like it was just, I can do that. I can say that word and people still love. Like it was incredible. So it's like, just to have, those different artists, like with those different songs, like I'm excited. I'm on the show and I'm excited to see the show. Like literally, like you have the Walls group, you have Tim Bowman Jr., who is my brother. I actually worked with him. I used to be at Spirit of Faith Christian Center, so we used to work alongside each other, and he's a beast. I love what he does and what he brings to the table. But just to be around all of these different artists and for us to put on a great show and have different types of music, I think the people are in for an absolute treat. Here we go.
to 6 different cities. And you have when you think about the gospel tradition of these cities. So you talk about starting in Chicago, then Detroit, but then you have Philly, then you have Atlanta, Dallas, Jackson, Mississippi, Dallas. And the thing that again, look, I travel all around this country, and that's also even with that, there are different flavors and styles in terms of what people like in those cities.
Yeah.
Which is also, I think, interesting and unique.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think now Chicago people don't be mad at me. I think Chicago is gonna be our. Chicago is a tough crowd.
Why?
Them people, they just I don't know what it is about. I love Chicago,
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what it is.
but they tough.
I'm gonna tell you what it is.
Okay, what it is?
So first of all, I lived in 6 years.
Okay.
This was actually my church. With the House of Hope Salem Baptist Church. I was a member of this church.
Okay.
And Chicago folk country. Well, they want to act like they're from the city.
Okay.
Okay. I'm from Chicago. Where you people from? Where they people from? Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama. They all. It was the Great Migration.
Yeah.
That's all it was. But they want to act like they want to be people. Chicago folk want to be brand new. Oh no. We from Chicago. I look. You country. This the see. I was about to cuss. See, but I know that. But the Chicago folk will make you cuss because they sit here and try to act like they just so. Remember I said city and country.
Okay, yeah.
They always like we Chicago.
Yeah.
We Chicago. Then I go. You ain't from here.
Yeah.
Oh no. I was born here. And plus, anytime you meet a Chicago Negro, they gonna give you their whole address. They're not going. I'm trying to. Antoine, where you from? No. See, normally when you meet somebody from Chicago, they gonna give you.
Hey, why you don't like that though?
They go.
Y'all make it hard for us.
Yeah, they right. They gonna give you the cross street. Oh no, I'm from Stony in '87.
And they just be sitting there looking like, impress me if you can.
Well, when I came here.
Ain't not, but if you from Chicago, they give you.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. Well, so when I came here, I came to run Chicago Defender.
Okay.
So historic black newspaper, and they were all, who he think he is coming from Texas? Oh no, they were no, these fools were protesting me.
No.
And I was like, who you think you are? I said, well, first of all, the paper had been broke for 20 years. Okay. And made a profit. I said, so clearly y'all know what y'all could do.
Okay.
So y'all had to go outside of Chicago to find somebody to come fix this dog.
That whole part.
I'm like, so what you got to say? So yeah, I got in some folk faces. And I said a few non-Jesus things, but I blessed them.
Okay.
They got blessed.
They got blessed. For 6 years?
Multiple times, yes. But I had to let them know. So yeah, they same thing. They want to try you. You like?
Yeah.
Like,
why y'all doing that?
You like really? Like really? You think you will try me? I get. And I'm from Texas. Like, don't try me. Don't try me.
Yeah, I'm from the South.
I ain't the one.
We get down.
I ain't the one.
Okay.
I had to let them know. So yeah, they get real extra like
yes,
that.
I think Chicago gonna be, that's our first stop. This they gonna break us in. They gonna really break us in. We gonna get ready. We gonna get prime up in Chicago.
And Donald Lawrence is the
and Bishop Head, yeah. Let me tell you something. Donald Lawrence is incredible. Like, just what he's doing with the music aspect of it, like, it's incredible. Like, just the rehearsals were just like top tier. Like, he's incredible, and I'm just happy that I was able to work with him. I mean, he on a whole nother. It's Donald Lawrence.
I drive Donald crazy all the time because I jam Back to Eden all the time. I literally listen to it probably about 15 times flying here. As a matter of fact, the last time we did this here, they were rehearsing.
Okay.
And I'm real black. I'm real black. Monica, they call me the voice of Black America.
Okay.
So if it's a black event, I pretty much can walk into the room. So I walked in the rehearsal like, yo, I need to hear Back to Eden. And they all turned around. I was like, oh, that's rolling.
Did he play for us?
Huh?
Did they
he like, we'll get that in a minute. I was like, no, I need to hear Back to Eden. I ain't trying to hear everything else. I ain't want to hear no singing scenes. I need to hear Back to Eden.
Let me hear my song. My favorite Donald Lawrence song is "Encourage Yourself."
Okay.
That's one of my favorites.
If somebody out there says, I mean, I ain't never heard this Bri Babineaux woman. What song should they listen to?
If they say they never, okay, two. One song is "Make Me Over." For some reason, I cannot get that song cut off my resume. But "Make Me Over" and the other song is my everything. If you say any two of those songs, people would know.
Make over my everything.
Yes.
See, it's something like that. Just like, look, Tamla Mann said, look, she said for the rest of her life, she gonna have to sing that song.
It's gonna be singing "Take
And she gonna get cussed. She gonna see, she like, hey, they ain't cussing me out if I don't sing that song. Because church folk they'll bless you. No, I'm just saying, but they get an attitude if you don't sing.
Right.
Like, I know you coming back out. Because I ain't here. It's like black people with Lionel Richie. That like, you gonna sing Zoom? No, they
don't even know that song. Zoom.
So I'm gonna let you put your black card on the table because right now it's
Y'all know that?
It's
They don't even hand me your black card.
First of all, I don't even need to look over my shoulder.
They don't know that.
Probably,
we know Tootie
no, that probably was Anthony. That probably was Anthony. Look, he didn't know who Jeffrey Osborne was. He never saw the movie Glory.
I even know who that is.
He
Who is Jeffrey Osborne? Is that one of the Osborne people?
Break.
Who is that? I don't know who that is.
Your black card right now.
He black? He can't be black with that name, Osborne. All I know is,
You ever heard of LTD?
No.
You ain't.
Who is that?
You ain't never.
That must be old. That must be people from.
You said your daddy.
60s or 70s.
Girl, you ain't never heard of LTD?
That's a singer, a band.
You ain't never.
Don't know LTD?
You ain't never.
He said now. There gotta be some old.
On the Wings of Love, Love Ballad, Stranger. You ain't never.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. It must not be top tier. It can't be top tier because there's no way. They don't even know who that is. Who is
They've been in
LTD?
prison. They've been in
Is that
prison.
initials
They've
or
been
something?
in prison.
Larry Time and Dick. I don't know.
You gonna make me call.
Who is that? That's a group. It was a band. I don't know who that is.
It LTV.
Like Kiki Bumper said something to that man. I don't know who that is. I'll be
Yeah.
Who is it? I'm about to say Larry. Who is that? I don't know those people. And they were musicians?
They one of the greatest groups. Jeffrey Osborne became the drummer, the lead singer, and Jeffrey is one of the premier. But you.
And he black. He like mixed.
He black. He's black.
I don't know him. And he was from the 70s.
And he's still.
But he was from the 70s. That's what.
No, he's from the 70s, the 80s. You said your daddy listened to all that stuff.
We listen to like Tyrone, David. Yeah, like we not.
What? Tyrone Davis, Bobby Rush. Yeah, what?
Bobby Bland. You know what?
Bobby Blue Bland. Yeah, BB King. But you said the Gap Band.
Yeah.
All that.
He was in like what?
In that same era.
He wasn't top tier then.
Yes, he
couldn't have been top tier because I would know. Y'all know? Hey, let me ask you, who know? Raise your hand. Okay, who know? Who knew before Roland said something? Y'all did? Y'all really black then. Let me see. There must be a men group. But how old you at?
They must be a men group.
How old y'all? How old are y'all? 44? Your parents was older then. So they, I had young parents. My daddy older, but baby, he went to jail for a little while, He was in jail, he went to jail twice. So
Look at Jeffrey Osborne.
I didn't know about that until, he got it out of jail, got out. By that time, I'm grown, My mom and them was in church. My grandparents was in church. We listened to church music. So, hey, LTD, Larry, Tom, and Dick, I really don't know. I'm going to go learn them, though. I'm going to go find out. And what they song?
Bri
And the lead singer was Jeffrey Osborne.
Great. Yo.
That was the lead singer?
Yes.
All right. I'm gonna go find out. If
And you
somebody
ain't-
else on this
and I
song,
said, and I
wait a
said,
minute,
and I
pause.
said,
If
Zoom.
somebody else
You
on this song,
you heard the Commodores?
Yes.
They did Zoom. That's literally one of their black people.
When you said Zoom for somebody else,
No,
you said
Lionel
Zoom
Richie.
for Rick, yeah. You can't have two people with the same song.
Lionel Richie was the lead singer, Commodore.
Lionel Richie. Why I'm thinking about Little Richie. That's it. I'm thinking about the whole time. I was thinking about Little Richie. Little Richie. Okay, yeah. Okay, my bad. You back? I still don't know who them people is though. Still don't know Jeffrey. I still don't know.
So you get some homework. First of all, you gonna go listen to Zoom.
I already don't listen to Lionel Richie like that. We listen. What's that song, y'all? All night long. Oh my, this song.
Listen, black people.
Okay.
Demand Zoom.
I know enough black people. Okay, you gonna take my card because
your card. Yes, your card is in review status right now. The committee is meeting Friday.
Ask somebody else when you interview them if they know who that is.
I'm gonna ask everybody. See this down.
I know for a fact. I know a few of them.
I'm gonna ask everybody. Have they heard Zoom from the Commodores? I'm gonna ask them. Do they know Jeffrey Osborne and or LTD?
And let me know.
I guarantee
you need to tell me who knew it and who did, and they best not lie because if they know it, they need to sing it.
I'm gonna
make them sing it on the spot if they know it. That's how you know they're gonna really know it.
Oh, I got it.
And then a song from LTD. If they know it, they should be able to sing it. But I guarantee you, and no ask no old people, no older people. They may already know it.
Hold on. See right here. See, now you trying to tell me who I can and can't ask.
Because they know it.
You
I'm
said
sure they probably know
You
it.
said ask everybody.
No, not them two. They probably know it. Them two probably know it.
No, I can't ask them.
No, but everybody knows she can ask.
Okay.
I know for a fact. Quote me. Tim Bowman Jr. ain't gonna know who this is. Timmy ain't gonna know.
Okay. Hold up. Okay. So who else you say not gonna know?
You can ask don't may know, but I'd be surprised if don't know.
Okay.
I know Tim ain't gonna know.
Okay. The Walls.
They may know. Daryl may know. But ask them. You can't ask Hayes because Hayes is older. He gonna know. And Anthony is a music head. He's gonna know too. But everybody else, you can ask.
Okay.
Paris, you.
Okay. I'm gonna ask everybody.
And Zoom was a popular song. Hey, y'all in the back that knew who Zoom was and knew LTD. That was real popular, like one of the hits.
Hear it, let her know. Like hits.
I'm not a Commodore girl though. And this will hit all the time. Don't add that in there. Don't throw that in there all the time. I'm not a Commodore girl. I'm gonna find out who that is, Jeffrey, all of these people. I just can't believe it. Yeah, I was finding out. We gonna get it.
Your call.
Oh, look, Paris said we good.
Your call is on the tape.
No, it ain't.
It's in review status. The committee is meeting.
Okay, I knew everybody else. So that's that's all right. Review it, but you're gonna be reviewing a couple others. I guarantee you.
All right.
All right.
Okay, we'll see. You're gonna be reviewing. Okay, and if more. Okay, so if two. But
they can't just say they know, because I could have lied and be like, oh yeah,
I'm gonna ask them additional questions.
They need to sing it.
I'm gonna ask them additional questions, and if at least two of them, not Anthony, no, you gotta do a song on the accordion in your set.
I know it's God that he ain't gonna know it, cause then he don't want me to be doing no thing. Parents gonna tell me, cause I know for a fact. Because they're gonna have to sing it, they're gonna have to prove it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do that.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
I'm good.
You good?
Oh yeah, I'm straight. Because I know that they ain't gonna know that. They ain't gonna know that. Y'all, they old. He got that grade. He got grade. He's insane.
I'm actually young.
How young? You got older parents?
Nah. He was raised right.
What that mean? Hey, my daddy. I'm gonna ask my daddy if he know that song.
Ask your daddy. He gonna say, did you actually say that publicly? Your daddy gonna be mad at you.
Don't air that part, boy.
He gonna be mad at you.
Well, he shouldn't have went to jail. Wait on.